All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Andrew Anderson. Andrew, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Kevin, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with good people and
Amen.
friends like you.
Well, thanks for that. I'll tell you, I want to start off by giving a shout out to Kristen and Kurt Ludhart. Man, I love those two individuals. Those are two amazing people right there. And I had an opportunity to meet them last year, and we have just become such close friends. And they're the one that introduced you and I. And I'll tell you, whenever Kurt or Kristen send me an email and say, Kevin, I want to connect you with so and so. I'm like, man, I am in 100%, because anyone that would come through them is definitely someone that I want to meet and get to know. And of course, you and I got to have that conversation and get to know each other a little bit. And through that, we decided to do this podcast interview. And here we are. And what a powerful testament right there to the impact of right relationships, which of course is what this podcast is all about. And so how did you happen to meet Kurt and Kristen?
Yeah, so about a year ago, I was at an event with Kurt. We were in the same group. It was a mastermind event with other business owners, just
Okay.
networking and getting to know each other. And we just hit it off. And we've
Yep.
spent several times together and introduced some great people back and forth. And so I've just become very appreciative of who they become as friends.
Yeah. Amen. Absolutely. They're good people to have in your life for sure. And I don't know what it was, for you during the first conversation that we had, but for me, it just kind of felt like you and I had known each other for years just because we both already had this relationship with Kurt and Kristen and stuff. I just like felt so like right at home and comfortable talking with you. And like I said, like it was like I'd known you for years. And that's an awesome experience. So what I want to do is I want to start off by setting a little bit of context. So let's just start with um, letting people know a little bit about what do you do and who do you serve. We'll start there, and then I'm going to go ahead and back up from there and stuff. But we'll start right there.
So what do I do? I show up in three or four roles each day that are extremely important to me. The first is as a son of God. I can't ever forget whose work I'm really involved in, uh,
Amen.
and those that work is in some stewardships. The first stewardship is my role as a husband. So I go to work so that my wife can have an incredible life that we're building together, and she gets to stay home and homeschool, and she does some foot zoning to help people as well. But that role of a father, I have 7 children, so I get to provide for them. And then the third role, the stewardship that I have, is as a coach. And I have been given incredible opportunities throughout my life to use skills that I've developed to help business owners that are struggling with things that are beyond the red or black numbers on a spreadsheet
Okay.
and beyond the services or the products that they provide. It's what's going on deep in their heart and in their mind. So I help highly successful business owners and executives solve problems that money can't solve.
Very good.
Get to be called a coach in that capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. You and I have some things in common because I'm also a husband and a father to 7 kids. And so it's not too often that you find that in common, that the commonality of 7 children together. That's unique right there. And I will tell you, like you, I mean, yeah, I love my role as a husband to my wife Lisa, and a father to our 7 kids and stuff, our 7 children, who range in age from 38 all the way down to 15. And so so they span a range for sure. And I love that. I mean, yeah. And what I do as an entrepreneur is like you. I want to have that support, me being in the role of husband and father too, because I want. And what's really cool is we really can have it all, can't we? We really can, and that's pretty awesome. So, how did you get into being a coach? How did this all evolve? Because, yeah, I'd be really curious to hear the backstory on this.
Yeah. The backstory, we can start in elementary school, middle school, high school, or the end of career number one. Which one of those places would you
Let's
like to
go all the
start at?
way because my backstory goes all the way back to elementary school. So let's start yours there too.
Sure. I'm in fourth grade, and there's this young man that comes to our school, and I grew up and still live in Boise, Idaho, and it's very middle class suburbia, white conservative America. Like that's kind of how I grew up, and there was not a lot of diversity in the school that I went to, and but this kid comes into our school and he speaks zero English, and he's from Vietnam, and his name is Lap, and Lap and I somehow, I don't know if my teacher asked me or if I just saw the need and jumped on it, but Lap and I would play together at recess.
Okay.
And no one else played with us as I think about it. Just me and him, we would take a red, like four square kind of kickball that you'd use on the playground. I taught him how to drop kick it, and we would just kick the ball back and forth as 8, 9 year old little boys. And I just remember him laughing, and that language of play that children share in common is universal. And I was amazed at his ability to take numbers and do things with math that I couldn't do. And he was amazed what I could do with a ball. And so he became my math buddy, helping me with the universal language of numbers, and I became his playground buddy with the universal language of play. And I didn't know it at the time, but I think God was preparing me to see the needs of individuals and show up for them in a way that maybe no one else can. So I like to say that my my coaching career began in fourth grade at Frontier Elementary School in the playground.
Okay. Okay. And so how did that transpire like throughout your high school years and stuff? And did you say you went to college too?
Yeah, so we'll just go through each one really quickly. I'll tell you a
Yeah.
story from each. Middle school, I helped this young man named JJ, and JJ was in a wheelchair and he could stand, but he couldn't get up and down from his wheelchair. And so when he needed to go to the restroom, I would help him out of his wheelchair, and he would be using the urinal, and then I'd help him back in. And again, I don't know if I was asked to or if there was like volunteers. I was JJ's helper. And then in high school, I somehow must have had this invisible something tattooed on my forehead that others could read that said, future coach, future life coach. I attracted young women that were either friends or they were girlfriends or just friends of friends. I attracted young women that have been taken advantage of sexually by boys who, whether it was through drugs or alcohol or just maybe being a little more forceful than they wanted to be. And these girls would confide in me, and I would help them find adults that could help them in those situations. And so as my life has gone on, these problems have gotten bigger and more complicated, and required me to become a better listener and someone that could hold space for others. So I I never chose any of this. There's just these people just always come.
Yeah. But you know what? So what, I first learned of this concept called unique ability by a guy named Dan Sullivan who runs a company called Strategic Coach,
Yeah,
And I first heard of that concept probably 23, 24 years ago. And I started doing what he said as far as like how to go about finding out what your unique ability was. But you ask people closest to you, about, and you ask them certain questions and then like invite their feedback. And I like this is what would be called unique ability, and we all have it, we all possess it. Unfortunately, most people never figure it out. They never figure out that they have this unique ability, or if they do, they kind of poo-poo it off because they're like, "Oh, well, that's so easy. Anybody could do that,"
Mhm.
And so they don't place value on it themselves, and they don't realize that, like, no, that's your thing. That's what you're really good at, you know.
Right.
And it does come naturally. And I don't know, it's probably about 4 or 5 months ago. I was interviewing this guy Marcus Collius for this podcast.
I know
And,
Marcus.
and you know Marcus? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, small world.
Yeah.
Um, so it wasn't during the podcast, but after the podcast, he just started asking me some more questions about, because I told him, I said, yeah, I'm a connector and conduit of trust, been doing this for years. And he started asking more questions about this. And he's like, Kevin, he's like, this is the Holy Spirit working through you. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, he is totally right about that. And I'd been looking at it as unique ability in my concepts from like Dan Sullivan learning and stuff. But what Marcus said, and a shift took place there too, as soon as Marcus said that. Because like as soon as he said it, I was in total agreement with that. And I'm like, well, gosh, now that I realize that that is really what this is and stuff, and somebody like him shared that with me, that I'm like, this is the first. I was like, it's not. I attract a lot of Christians and believers into my world and stuff. But that was the first time that somebody ever said, Kevin, this is the Holy Spirit working through you because you allow this and stuff. And I'm like, I just told Marcus, I was like, well, I'm just going to allow more of this.
Mhm.
I'm just going to be
Absolutely.
more of a vessel for this. And and I love, because I certain I was really good at bringing people together even when I was young and in high school and all that, but I didn't realize that,
Mhm.
I didn't realize that at the time. And like I said, I started discovering this about 22, 23 years ago. So in my late 30s, 37, 38. And so man, I'm just there. I just love what you're sharing and stuff, and how this just came so naturally for you, and you weren't looking for this. It was just who you were and how you showed up.
I think
And
our unique abilities often reveal themselves in ways that we don't go searching for. They are presented to us, and then we have, as I started this call, this recording with you, we have a stewardship over those unique abilities. And to be honest with you, Kevin, I don't even think that those unique abilities were given us. I think we have been developing them for an eternity. And my belief is, as I'm sure maybe you can attest to, having 7 children as well, is each one has such unique, differing, powerful abilities that you didn't choose for them. And so I believe that we came to this earth having developed some talents, and we had some stewardships over some things that we now get to, again, um, we get to present these gifts and talents back to God at some point and share with him what we did with them.
yeah,
And the sooner we can figure out what they are, the easier life gets, the more
amen.
fun it is, the more
Yeah,
people we help, and the less we focus on um, making money and doing things that maybe aren't the true meaning for what it's all about.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, man. So, um, so you go through high school, and
Yeah,
that's it. Did you attend college too? Is there more experiences that you had like along I just want to hear some more of the experiences that
yeah,
kind of.
sure. So the coaching journey, there's from high school, I did attend college. I also had a 2-year service mission for my church that
Okay.
was full time to Belgium and France that I got to. Uh, it was extremely formative for me because I'm just learning a new language and sharing the love of Jesus with people through service and through sharing the word, and that was extremely formative for me. Uh, I finished college and was married and started a career as a teacher. I
Okay.
spent 6 years in the classroom, and it was actually going through a separation and a divorce that helped me transition from the teaching career into the coaching world. And
Okay.
at the time, I felt like my life was over, as anyone does when they're losing a career and a marriage and a family all at the same time. And up until a few months ago, I used to pity that version of me. I really felt bad for him.
Uh-huh.
And a dear friend, probably a relationship that you're going to ask me about here, at some point today, but a dear friend that if I hadn't have met this man in Belgium at 19 years old, if I hadn't met him, I would not be doing what I'm doing in my life right now. I wouldn't be the man that I am, the husband, father, the career. This man told me a few months ago, he's like, you still talk about that 30-year-old self that went through that divorce and lost his career. You still talk about him with pity. And he said, I wish that you would tell this story differently from now on. He
Mhm.
said, you need to honor and respect that version of you because you would not be doing what you're doing and helping who you're helping or anything without having gone through that
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So as I think about that 28, 29, 30-year old self that was going through that transition time in my life, I honor him and I'm grateful
Yeah.
for what he went through. And I'm grateful for my first wife and for being able to honor that decision that I would have never chosen on my own.
Yeah.
And if we hadn't gone through that, then I wouldn't have changed careers and I wouldn't be with my current wife of almost 10 years and my these all these bonus children from her first marriage and from what we've brought together. So as as hard as that was, and I would never wish it on anyone, as I know you could attest to from having been through a similar experience, I am
Yeah.
so grateful that I got to go through that
Yeah.
and that I got to leave that teaching career and be introduced to another opportunity.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah, and I know, there's so many similarities because, I was married I had a first wife too. And that marriage lasted about 4 years and when that relationship ended, that was a pretty dark spot for me at the time. And I thought, man, I must have done something really wrong to end up here, you know, because I just thought, oh, I was going to be married forever. And but I'll tell you what, yeah, you're right. That version of me is what led to what I get to do today, you know. And my wife Lisa and I, in fact, last month we celebrated our 20th anniversary, and that is just and I am so grateful to have her in my life. And like your family, we have kind of a mixed family. She'd been a single mom for 10 years raising the four older kids. And so I didn't have any kids when I met Lisa, and then we had two more of our own, Brock and Ellie, and then we adopted Abby when she was 3, and Abby is now 15, so she's been with us for 12 years now, and that has been an absolutely amazing experience too and stuff. And it's so how um you now so I want to what is an example of a result that you have helped one of your clients get that you are just incredibly proud of, Andrew?
Yeah. Well, let's call him Jared. I've
Okay.
never coached a Jared. I've coached lots of other male names, but um, Jared came to me having done almost $1 million in his business. He didn't have a problem making money, but he was struggling with drug addiction, porn addiction. He and his wife were not able to have children for several years because of different struggles that he was having and they were having in their marriage. And they had one child, and he, although he didn't have a hard time making money, he had a hard time keeping it.
Okay.
And he was very good at what he did professionally. Everybody knows him as maybe the best in his industry. And as we came together, we did the work that no other counselor or therapist or coach had been able to do. We got to the root cause of what was happening at a deep unconscious level that was creating these symptoms of self-sabotage and these cycles of continuing to hurt himself and those that he cared about most. And as we went through this process, it doesn't take years or months or weeks. It's a matter of hours, because it's not supposed to be something that's really hard. We just have an industry of counselors, therapists, and coaches that have created codependent relationships so they can create, client relationships for life. So in a matter of 24 hours, we got to the root cause and we did the deep work to make the changes in his brain, literally new neural pathways, to teach these old ones to stop wiring and firing together and these new ones to start, which was aligned with who he really is as a
Wow.
man
Wow.
and what his unique abilities are. And we then entered a coaching relationship because he said, I want you to be in my corner. And I'm proud to say that now, about a year later, he and his wife are pregnant. He's no longer abusing drugs. He has reconnected with God in his life. His business is thriving and he's keeping money rather than watching it disappear.
Yeah.
And it's a privilege to be able to build that kind of brotherhood.
Yeah.
It goes beyond just a coaching client, even friendship. I usually walk away having these people that I love, and we work together for as long as we need to help them continue to build their life and their relationships and their business.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
really humbled for the journey that Jared and his wife are on and what they get to create now as a
Yeah.
family.
Yeah. I love what you shared there about, what well, you mentioned like how so many in the industry want to create this codependent relationship because that keeps clients and patients long term, It reminds me of that movie, Molly's Game. I don't know if you ever saw Molly's Game. True
Yeah.
story, about this gal, who built one of the largest poker games in history, and got just really big whale players coming and playing poker and stuff. But her dad was like a psychologist or whatever and stuff. And at the end of that movie, they had a conversation. He's like, I'm going to help you right here, and I'm going to take what most people would say it would take years, and we're going to do this in a matter of minutes, right here, right now. And he just did three things with her, and it was even watching the movie, it was just like, wow, look at how that played out right there. And it's kind of like, and maybe somebody who's had these relationships in their life with other coaches that they had this and they didn't get the results that they wanted and stuff. And it did kind of like, man, is this ever going to get any results from me? Am I ever going to see something from this? And when you shared what you shared, there might be people thinking like, you know what? Man, I want to experience more like what Andrew is talking about and experience the result. And then I can make a informed decision that, you know what? I want to do more stuff together, not because I feel like I trapped in unresolved stuff. And what a cool and different way to look at things.
Well,
So,
most people in life are playing a lot of defense.
mhm.
And here's what I mean. My dad is 76 years old and he loves going to high school sporting events, whether it's a rugby game for my daughter or a basketball game for one of my nephews, or he'll go to games at his local high school where he doesn't have grandkids playing. He just likes to go and support the youth of his church and neighborhood. Um, and there's this moment at the end of a game where when the home team is winning and they are running out the clock and trying to prevent the other team from scoring, he has a minor heart attack. And he says something to the effect of, and I've watched him do this my entire life. He says something to the effect of, "You got to play to win. Don't play not to lose. Go score." And when he has seen a team that's winning stop doing what they were doing, which was playing offense and trying to win and trying to score, then they end up turning the ball over or something happens, and he just can't handle that. And most people in life are playing defense.
Yeah,
They're playing not to lose.
yeah,
They're trying to get out of pain. And most people that are helping in the field of personal growth, development, psychology, coaching, counseling, like they're in the survival game. They're helping people play defense, not to lose. And I'm grateful for them. I've had great counselors and therapists in the past that kept me alive, and I honor them and I respect them. And there's this other level of, okay, how do we get people out of survival and into thriving? How do we get them to play offense, to play to win? And so when I work with a client, we spend hours in the first day and a half playing defense, but we do it in a way of, instead of fighting and resisting and hating and pitying that version of us that's gone through challenges, we learn from and we lean into and we love. And as soon as, just like a child, as soon as we give that version of us the attention that it needs, then it gets quiet. And then we can begin to create and build a life and a business from that point. And we can play to win and we can move
Amen.
toward what we want rather than moving away from the things we don't want.
Yeah.
It's really hard to move forward while you're looking back.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Well, okay. So now that we've got some context set here, I want to switch gears just a little teeny bit. And I'm going to reiterate the question I want to ask you for the benefit of our listeners. So, Andrew, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I have two in mind. The first is Xavier, and
Okay.
Xavier is from Belgium, and I met him when I was 19. And I am, at the time of this recording, 40 years old, so I've known him for 21 years, and
Okay.
we are still friends. We FaceTime to this day. He has come to my home 3 different times in the last few years. He comes and supports me in the retreats that I hold for my friends and clients, and he he is my best friend and coach when I need someone to look into my heart and soul and ask me the questions that no one else will ask.
Yeah.
And so I love Xavier dearly, and he was a mentor for me as a 19-year-old. I think he was 28 or 29 at the time, is how far apart we are. And I looked up to him and what he was doing in his life and with his family. And there had been a number of years in my 20s where we didn't really connect much. And
Okay.
then we reconnected, and at a time where he was going through a challenging separation and a divorce, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I know you've been through this." And we got to flip that script, and I got to help him where he had been helping me for so many years. And now it's 100% reciprocal in that we show up for each other, we help coach each other, and we pour into each other. And it's a pretty sacred relationship that I will forever be grateful for.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And you mentioned there was one more person that you'd like to honor too.
Yeah. So I when I was going through my separation and divorce and lost my teaching job, there was a 1 year period where I sold real estate as
Okay.
a residential real estate agent full time. And I was offered a position to start coaching new agents. So I left my full time sales position and started coaching full time. And during that year, we had one of our top producing agents, Barb Dopp is her name. She's a dear friend of mine to this day. She brought a gentleman to Boise to speak to a room of about 100. And I remember going to this event and paying money that I didn't believe I had because I was struggling as as everything that was happening at that time. And I sat in the front row and I got to learn from a master teacher, a master coach, and his name is Kevin Hall.
Okay.
And Kevin had been the vice president of sales at Franklin Covey, working hand in hand with Stephen Covey. And at this time, which was 10 years ago, the summer of 2015, he was no longer working with Franklin Covey, and he had written a book called Aspire. And this book teaches these 10 powerful words. And he took us through those words during that day of training. And he saw something in me, just like Xavier saw. But this time I wasn't a 19-year-old kid, I was a 29-year-old kid. But he saw something in me, and he kind of took me under his wing, and I began working with him in a group coaching setting. And I told him, I said, someday, Kevin, I would like to speak alongside you on stage. And that ended up happening. And when I knew that I needed to write a book, he was the first person I called. And he
Wow.
helped me through that. And he always was willing to pour into me. And even just this last year, I got to speak at one of his events with him. And just a dear friend, a dear mentor, and someone that I look up to greatly. And I 100% would not be where I'm at today without him
Yeah.
professionally.
Wow. So let's unpack that a little bit more because I like to ask this question where I'll ask, what's an example of a situation where you personally got to make a really substantial impact, and maybe even in the moment it might have surprised you a little bit, but you also know that that would have never been possible if not for your relationship with either one of these gentlemen that you've talked about. And like I can ask you that question, but you've already kind of alluded to it in being able. And I don't know, maybe something else comes up for you other than speaking at his event and stuff. So what is? I mean, would that speaking at his event qualify for a great answer to that question? Or
No, it's the things that have happened because of that. So, for example, um, I'm gonna tell a story and then we'll backtrack it how it connects
sure,
to. Uh, I had a previous client reach out to me, and he said, Andrew, I'm driving from New Mexico to Texas, and there are two things that I have in my car. One is a gun, and the other is the Bible. And he said, there are two things that are keeping me from using that gun to take my life right now. One is the Bible, and the other is I'm listening to your book. And I thought, okay, I never wanted to write that book from a business perspective. I didn't want to write it to become famous or to become a number one international bestseller on Amazon or to make money. I wrote that book because I was at Kevin Hall's event in Zion National Park, standing in the Virgin River, looking up at the rock walls of those red canyons. And God said, you're going to write a book, and it's called Strength of the Oak, Strength of the Willow. And if it wasn't for my relationship with Kevin being in that setting at that moment, then I wouldn't have written that book. And I wouldn't have been able to share it with this man who may or may not have had that as a resource to keep him from taking his life. Now, if nothing else were to come from that book besides that one experience, it would have been more than enough. And I would have gladly written it 10 times over. And I'm just appreciative of the right people at the right time, the right places that help us have those experiences to create things that save lives sometimes. And Kevin was one of the people that helped hold that space for me.
wow, wow, that is so powerful right there. And you know, I'm just sitting here just taking all this in, and you know, that's a whole lot more than just I'm a coach. And so,
Right.
I mean, that is incredibly meaningful right there. And, I am sure there are people listening to this right now thinking, like, man, Kevin, I really love Andrew. I love who he is. I love how he shows up. And maybe something that you've shared here today has even got them thinking, like, you know what? Maybe he might be able to help me a little bit. Maybe I should see if I could have a conversation with him, or maybe I know somebody that I might want to connect him with. For anybody that's thinking along those lines, any websites, any resources that we can share with folks?
I'd rather you just give him my cell phone number. I mean,
Okay.
honestly, like Yes, they can reach out through LinkedIn. They can go to my website, andrewlanderson.com. But I just like having conversations with people. And if you know someone that reached out to you personally, then you just connect us via email or via text message. Because I I I love what Susan Scott said, and she wrote the book Fierce Conversations and other books as well. But she said this, and it used to be the quote that's on my email signature. You know how we have those fun quotes. Susan Scott said, "While no single conversation is guaranteed to change the trajectory of a career, a relationship, or a life, any single conversation absolutely can."
Yeah,
And I don't ever want to turn away an opportunity to have one of those single conversations.
yeah. So, okay, so I can definitely include your cell phone number with the show notes. Do you also want to give it right here on this? I mean, because you're welcome to give it out right here if you
Yeah,
want to.
anybody can text or call me anytime. It's there's
Okay.
I have a personal phone and a business phone, and I turn the business phone off when I want to be by myself or my family or friends and evenings and weekends. So if it's midnight and you're listening to this and you text me, you're not going to be bothering me because I won't find it until the next business morning that I'm in my office. So yeah, my cell phone is 208-494-4497. 208-494-4497.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. You know what's interesting? I've never given my cell phone out on a podcast. And it's not like I do tons of interviews. I've probably done 40 of them in my whole lifetime. I've never
I've done
given.
80, and this is the first time that I've ever given my cell phone
Really?
number.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Um, I do have my cell phone number listed in my email subject line though, and I have for a long time. And my wife, when I told her that I was going to do that, she was concerned about, well, honey, lots of people sees your emails, and a lot of times people forward your emails, and so that could mean your cell phone getting out there to a lot of different places and stuff. And I'm like, yep. I say, I know, but you know what? It just feels like the right thing to do. And I don't know how long it's been now. It's probably been 2.5, 3 years. And not once, I mean, I get the regular, spam kind of calls, and stuff, just like anybody else does. But I have not once had anybody abuse that. Not once, ever. And it's been out there in lots of emails at this point in time. But I have had 3 people call me because they wanted to talk.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that even when it is in emails, and it doesn't say call me or anything like that. It just says my name, my email, and I don't know. It says making introductions. I don't remember what it says, but that's what it says in my subject line. And I don't have a website or anything like that. I mean, I do have a website. It could probably use some updating, but I'm like, whatever. It's not top of my
Yeah.
priority list. And so, and but it hasn't been a bad thing at all and stuff. But I've never. uh, I'm really curious to see what might come from this now, and because I'm looking at my own experience, and I'm also looking at just like the kind of entrepreneurs that are in my world and in my network and stuff. They're a pretty good group of people. And so, well, Andrew, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. Any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, whether your cup is empty and you came hoping to fill it today, or your cup is overflowing and you're wanting to give back, the answer is the same. No matter how full, empty, half empty your cup is, if I could invite each person, including you, Kevin, to do one thing that would mean the world to me having listened to this would be to go serve someone. And Jesus said it best that if you want to, find yourself, you're gonna have to lose yourself. And if you're looking for happiness, um, the best way to find it is to give. and do it unconditionally, and to do it in a way that might be different than how you normally do it. And it doesn't have to be something big, it can be something very small: a phone call, text message, a smile, a handwritten note. But I invite you, again, whether you're feeling empty or full, the best thing to do right now and today is to go serve someone.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Well, Andrew, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today and just share from your heart. I am really excited to get this out there and share it with a lot of other folks. And so thank you. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you.
You're welcome. And I feel the same. Thanks for creating this space to share this message. And I trust that hearts will be touched and minds will begin to make some changes, and people will go out and serve the way that we all need each other to
Yeah,
serve it.
absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks again, Andrew.
Thank you.